Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. This is Seth. With me, as always, my good friend Brett. How you doing tonight, Brett?
Doing great, Seth. I think we should be celebrating 5-0 in the last 5 games, as Doc like to say. But 4-1 is pretty good. I think the team's looking much better. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I think we have a good chance against Indy tomorrow.
Yeah, we can just jump into this question for you. Obviously we're all talking about this terrible start for the Bucks, and it was. No one was happy about that. But when we were 1-6, 4 of those losses were to the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, one of which is the defending champions, the other of which went 15-0 before they finally lost, which was to Boston. And then now, like you just said, we just won 4 out of 5, and we're back up to 6-9 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So how much, were we overreacting? And we just kind of get our bearings. We don't even have Chris Middleton. Maybe it's okay that we're losing to some of those teams with it. Yes, there were a couple of bad losses at the very least, but maybe it was just that couple of bad losses, played pretty well against some good competition. Now we're winning. Maybe we're fine. I don't know. What do you think about just the schedule part of us doing poorly and then us doing better?
Well, I mean, I think everybody was overreacting. It's just, at the time it was 7 games into the season, and it was like, okay, it's a very long season. Like you really could not lose another game. It is possible to go that long, but it's, I don't know. I think it was way overblown. I do think there is something in the fact. I mean, Boston and Cleveland both look like by far the best teams in the East, and I'm sure they are and will maintain that throughout the whole season. But even that Boston Cleveland game was super fun and close. So yeah, I mean, the fact that we did lose to those good teams is something. Putting some wins together is going to is help. And I think a lot of things too is we've talked about, like someone like Giannis, like the way he plays in a game is different than you're going to practice. You just can't prepare yourself enough for what it's like to play with that guy, because he's so fast, so athletic. And so I think a lot of times it takes a couple of those real games for these new guys to like figure out, okay, how do I work with this? How do I fit in? So, I'm always more optimistic, but I think, yeah, I think it was too early to panic. I think that this early schedule did impact things a little bit, but now we're on a roll. Let's see how it works with Indy. That's going to be the big test for me.
At the very least, if we were going to do poorly, I'm glad that we did have some good losses, so to speak. I'm still not sold that everything's fine.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not as bad as it could be. Look at the Philadelphia 76ers. That's a lot worse over there. We're supposedly getting Chris Middleton back next week. And kind of an interesting thing about that, I guess he's cleared to play, but he's not ready. So him being the player is actually, which I don't really hear that often. Typically it's the other way around.
I think it's something, it's like a mental thing with him. I think it's because what I had heard is like when he rolled his ankle and he thought it should be fine, but it wasn't healing. And I think playing through it when he was probably, I don't know if he was getting the information wrong or thought he could trust his body. So maybe now he's at the point where he has to trust his ankles, and that's just a little mental hurdle for him, which is why, like they said, they're estimating another week. So that's fine. Like now that he can, like, hey, you're not going to mess up your ankle. He can practice harder. He can do all these things. And then he just has to get to the point where he trusts it. Because, I mean, we've seen athletes that try to favor a hip, a knee, and ankle. They just don't play the same at all. So, it's lack of trust, especially with like an ACL. I mean, he didn't have that, but those type of injuries where you have to have a lot of faith in your knees and ankles, I think he just has to trust it more. And that's a mental thing.
Yeah, and he's been slow to come back in the past. So I don't know if that's something he's thinking of. I think one of those injuries, he came back and then he had some setbacks. And so maybe that's kind of on his mind. Like, I don't want that to happen again. I just want to be ready to go. Apparently, if he plays 62 games this season, he makes like $1.5 million bonus, which in one sense is like, oh, that's it. You make $30 million a year. It's like nothing. At the same time, it's also, $1.5 million.
Right.
I wonder if he's like, you got to think he's thinking about that. And so he's missed 15 games, so he's down to 67. So he can miss like 5 more games, which seems kind of difficult. But I mean, if he's back and maybe he plays, 20 minutes for a little bit, or, he's not necessarily playing 35 minutes every game. It seems like if that was you, wouldn't you be like, I want to do that. Like, I want to play 62 games. So I wonder if he's going to go for that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure every time these bonuses are here, these guys want to make them. I mean, it's all like, get as much money as you can. I mean, in the back of Chris's mind, it's like, all right, if I don't come back, like, I don't know what my next contract looks like, and might as well get that money while I can. So if he's like, I'm going to push myself and I think I'm worthy of another contract, but hey, I'm not going to just leave $1.5 million like sitting on a table if I can get it. So I think that's definitely going to motivate him. And I think like once he comes back, like he's going to fit in a different way. Like watching some of these different lineups that are coming out there where it's either, Giannis and a bunch of guys or Dame and a bunch of guys, having that third set where it's Chris and a bunch of guys really is going to change his offense quite a bit. So I think he's definitely going to be motivated, and I think he's going to help. He's not going to be this savior that we're going to go completely undefeated now and just like kill everybody, but maybe not. I mean, he is severely underrated. He is an absolutely amazing player. So we should have high expectations.
Yeah, in addition to him just being a great player, obviously, he can handle the ball, and we don't have many ball handlers. And so when Dame's out for 3 games with a concussion, and then Ryan Rollins, who by the way is playing for our team, like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
He's got a shoulder injury. All of a sudden, you have no one outside of Giannis. There's like no one who can like bring the ball up. So it'll be helpful to just have another guy who can handle the ball and of course initiate offense. Sometimes the offense just looks so ugly out there. Yeah. And so it's a big deal to get Chris back, in addition to just, I think he was the number 1 mid-range shooter last year, I believe. So yeah, we're missing a lot with him not even being available for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And I think he can come out and he can play a lot of games. And if he comes back to form, all the people that think he's just injury prone and doesn't deserve anything, like, might be all on board and extending him for another year or two. I honestly think that like they are going to try to keep the core as long as possible, including like, to transition to Brook Lopez. We know he's older, but these last couple of games, he's looked fantastic. I mean, honestly, he is not only is his shot just like landing, but like he has really got a new energy for, being a rim protector. And it's just awesome to see. So even though he's getting old, like I'm sure that they're going to be actively trying to get him to come back for another year, hopefully at a lower pay. But I think, the idea of Giannis, Brooke, Chris, and Dame is like what they're really trying to hold on to as much as possible. And then all the other people, yes, we would like to keep you around, but I think they're really committed to those 4, even if they're getting older.
Yeah, it is interesting to see with Brooke. Can this continue for a full season into the playoffs? It's just obviously it's been 15 games or whatever it's been. But he has the last 2 games, he's been amazing. Like a top player in the NBA. He's been like really good.
Right. Yeah.
And like we've mentioned a bunch, of course, I think a lot of that is matchup dependent, but when he has the right matchup, he can be dominant. And it's awesome and worth, I guess I'm not sure exactly what it's worth, but for that game, it's definitely worth 20 million plus.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's kind of proving a lot of the haters wrong. Guys like me who are saying you should look for a trade. Let's get a mobile center. Yeah, he's making us look kind of dumb. Now there will be matchups where he should probably sit on the bench for a bit, but he's been awesome. And yeah, he's what, 30? Is he 36? I think 35.
Yeah, I think he might be 36.
I mean,
I know Dame is 34.
Old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for a big guy like that, and like you said, he's had a lot of energy. It seems like more energy. He got 3 steals the other game. He was just like picking the pocket of the other guy, like just making plays that I'm kind of surprised. Yeah.
They did say he's down to like 7% body fat, which seems like incredibly low. So maybe he's in the best shape of his life, like for all we know. I don't know. I mean, honestly, 36 is old, but it's also not 50. You know, I mean, that's, I think the thing that we always miss. It's like, yeah, 36 is old compared to like a, you know, an 18, 19-year-old that actually is playing in the NBA. But you're also not somebody's grandfather. Like he has a baby that's at like the game last night. So it's not like he's like legit old man. I just want to make sure that everyone kind of remembers that.
Technical difficulty. Yeah, I mean, he's a kid at heart because he loves Disneyland so much. Him and his brother are always joking around. So yeah, maybe that's part of it. Maybe he just has that young energy. Either way, he's been awesome.
Yes. Keep it up.
Yes. So one thing I wanted to jump into here, which is kind of maybe Chris related a little bit, is the mid-range shooting from the Bucks, because the Bucks have taken the third most shots from long mid-range. That's like 14 to 22 feet, which, and I guess I looked that up because that's basically the worst shot in basketball, I think, especially now in today's 3-point heavy. Either you want a dunker or 3-pointer, you know, all the analytic guys, you know, talk about that all the time. It's been like 10 years. It's kind of like driven into us by now. And so it's kind of, you know, so when I see that, I'm like, oh, we're taking the third most long mid-range shots. Like that seems to me like not great. Like, why are we doing that? And that's without Chris Middleton, who's like the best mid-range shooter, you know, so you would think he would take a lot of those, and he's obviously taken 0, yet we're still third in the league. And last year we took the 7th most. So we took a lot last year, but again, that's with Chris playing 55 games. So I kind of looked into it a little bit, and it's really Giannis, Dame, and Bobby who take all these shots.
Yep.
All right. So Dame taking these shots, he actually gets fouled on a decent amount of them, actually a pretty high percentage of them. He's getting fouled. So even though I think he's shooting 46%, which is not terrible. Last year, he only shot 40%, which is not that great. But again, he gets fouled a lot. So I think the efficiency is really not that bad. He's kind of, you know how Dame, he's kind of a foul baiting type of a guy, but you know, just kind of taking advantage of what the defense is doing. So I think that I can live with that. I'm not too upset about it. Bobby, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. And so he takes a lot of these shots, and he always has. So he's taking a similar amount this year from last year, but he's only shooting 41% so far this year. And it's like, do you want a 41%, 18-foot shot, or just take the 3-pointer, which, I think career-wise he's like a 40% 3-point shooter. So it's like, why take that 2-pointer when it could be a 3-pointer for just like 4 feet back or whatever. So that, I think the Bobby shots, and this is, I think, a complaint from a lot of people with Bobby. This is just one of those examples of like why they don't like Bobby as a player. So looking at the stats, this one kind of makes sense, where you're taking kind of inefficient shots that are not good, especially for the modern NBA. So that one's probably not so good. But the third guy is Giannis, which this was kind of the most interesting part of it. So this year, he's taking twice as many of these long mid-range shots than he did last year. And his 3-point shooting is like, it was actually way down last year, but it's even down to like almost nothing. Like he's only taken 10 threes on the season so far this year. And so it seems like he's replaced the 3-point, like under Bud. Bud actually had him shooting kind of a lot of 3-pointers, but he always sucked at it. Like his best year of shooting 3 was 31%. And so he was like 31%, 30%, 28% 2 years. And that was him shooting a decent amount. So it's like, he gave it an effort and he sucked at it. So I think he is now thinking like, well, everything's so clogged up for him, and it's so difficult for him to get to the rim, even though he still manages to do it all the time. But so I think he's just like, if he can get a shot, and if a 3-pointer would be ideal, but if it's a long 2-pointer, if it's an 18-foot shot, he's going to create some space, and then he's going to be able to like drive around guys and get more dunks and layups and that kind of stuff. And so I think that's why he's just pushing that this year. Like I said, twice as many this year as last year. And what's interesting is he's shooting it pretty good. because last year he only shot 34%, and this year it's 46%. So
Well,
if he can keep up a 46% shooting percentage from that range, that's actually not a bad shot. Especially when if you're going to take a three, it's only going to be like a 29%. If Giannis is taking a three, it's a bad shot basically. So if it's that much better to move in like 5 feet closer, and if it does create some space for you, then it's worth doing. And I mean, I think most people would agree he needs something there. You can't always get to the rim. So yeah, so like some interesting stuff there. I guess what do you take from that?
I think it's great that Giannis is like trying to always have more of a well-rounded game, and I am much more happy that he's doing some mid-range versus the 3-point shot. It just wasn't really in his bag, so it kind of just felt forced. And like you said, with those stats, he wasn't very good at it. Bobby, I've said before, I wish he was a different player. He's still such a great scorer, but I think he sometimes is just too focused on, I guess maybe sometimes trying to be the number one option. And I think that's what I see when he's taking some of those mid range. It's like, really, like I don't know if that play was for you and you just thought you had it. And obviously, I'm going to get more upset when he misses it. But it just seems like I don't know. He's forcing those a lot more. So I don't know. I think I'm not overly surprised by those stats of those three people being the one. But the one thing I did want to point out is, and this might be like, yeah, Brett, everybody knew this from the beginning, but when you watch like Giannis play, and Dame is like that too. You talked about like how they get fouled a lot, and that's just kind of like part of their game. But I think what I've been noticing is that they are incredibly strategic with what they're doing to get fouled. Like they really can attack one guy and make sure he's the one fouling him. So like Giannis really sometimes is going left and right. And he's obviously trying to make the basket, but he can find out how to hit the guy that he wants to, that he's going to try to get out of the game. And when those guys are able to get some of these like top players in early foul trouble, it opens up their whole playbook to be able to run different sets that make more sense to them. They don't have to fit into comeback mode and whatever lineup is going to have to create that. They get to control the game more. You have the starting center that's already got 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes. He's going to sit for a while, right? And if Dame is attacking one of the top guards, that's the same type of thing. It's like, all right, well now you open it up so that we can get AJ in and some of these other guys that are just going to hit these outside threes because one of their guards is out now. So I don't know if that's something that everybody knew, but I don't know. I think I noticed it more. I don't know. Is that something you've seen before?
I haven't noticed them like attempting to do that, but they should. And we, a lot of times we'll say that, like, go after this guy. He's got 3 fouls, or but yeah. So I haven't noticed them actually trying to do that. Now, certainly, especially with Dame, I'm noticing him trying to get fouled and just taking advantage when someone's in the wrong spot or has their arm in, and he knows like, I'm going to get this foul call, and as we've talked about, he always gets those swipe through calls, and sometimes he gets the shot, sometimes he doesn't get the shot. So he's really good at that, but I haven't noticed them actually attacking individual players. And maybe I'll make a more note of that, but I want them to do that for sure. I love the strategy, and especially when you get into the playoffs, I guess is maybe more when I'm cognizant of that. But obviously it's going to be a big deal if you can take, Brunson out of the game or whoever, some kind of main player that's driving their offense, and you get them out of the game for 5-10 minutes more than you might expect. That's going to be a big deal. So.
Yeah, and I think it's, obviously there's different players have different things. I mean, a guy like Brunson, Doc might think is too smart to get into foul trouble with Dame, and that might be a game where he throws Ajax on him. And it's like, all right, we're not going to let you fall into Dame's trap, but Dame will pick on somebody else. But since we don't think you're going to do it, we're just going to put this like little gnat in your face forever. Just to annoy you. So maybe, I mean, if not, this needs to be something that Doc is listening to, because I think it's just such a perfect strategy here. But like at the Bulls game, Giannis was able to get 2 quick fouls on Vucevic. Am I saying that right?
Sure.
Yeah. By doing the same thing, he came in, the lane was collapsing on him, and he was somehow able to get the center to hit the foul on him each time. And I was like, I think he's like very strategic in how he's doing this, that he's making sure that guy happens. Maybe that's just too genius level thinking that like that's impossible that he's doing it, but maybe that's exactly what he's doing, and it's just like just more amazing that he's able to pull that off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Giannis has looked, we were talking about Brook. Giannis also has seemed to step it up a little bit. I think he was kind of finding his way, even though he still got his numbers and everything, those first 5+ games. I don't know. It just looked a little bit off to me.
Yep.
And again, maybe part of it's the competition, who you're playing. Cleveland and Boston are both really good defenses. But yeah, he does. It seems like he's kind of found his way and has gotten more comfortable. Yeah, and he's been kind of unstoppable. So that's awesome.
Yeah. What's up with Ajax getting rid of the fro? Did you see that?
Feels like a mistake.
It does. Like multiple times during that game, I was like, "Who's that guy?" Oh, yeah, it's Ajax. And I was like, "Oh, who's that guy?" Oh, yeah, it's just. I'm like, "What the hell, man? Why would you do that?" I think Jordan Nwora did that too once, didn't he?
I think he did, but I mean, is that that hairstyle seems like not something people do anymore, but he did it.
Yeah,
like, I feel like he's like 15 years too late for that.
Or he's trying to bring it back. I don't know, but then he just kind of did the same. Every other player has, a cornrow look. It was like I agree. It was something unique that he was doing. I wish he didn't do it,
because the fro thing that he had was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Well,
like I think he was like one game away from getting like a red, white, and blue headband, and going straight like ABA player in it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he had kind of a bad game. First game with the cornrows. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Is that what we call them?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. So maybe he'll change it up immediately. Maybe he'll just shave it all off.
We'll see. That'd be good. Yeah. Do a Derek White.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Although it took Derek White forever to realize.
Make it a negative thing. So speaking of Ajax, what do you think about? So he played 3 or 4 minutes, and then he didn't come back into the last play of the game. That was 2 games ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I think he got 11 minutes. So he started both of these games. Only played 4 or 5, and then 11 minutes. Yeah. What do you think is going on there? Were you okay with that? Was it just a matter of other guys were playing well? You might let's just run with them. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I love that Ajax has been starting. I think that's a great move. It was a long time overdue. Get him some extra minutes, get him some starting experience. That was fantastic. I loved actually when he came in at the end of the game, because it just showed what Doc thinks of him as a defender. Mm-hmm. Looking back when the game's over, it was like, man, I wish he would have got more minutes. But I have to say, in both of those games, there weren't many times where I was like, where is he? Why is he not doing something? Because like you said, maybe the group of guys that were out there were just vibing at the right time. I don't remember each quarter when he wasn't playing. I know like with the most recent game against the Bulls, the second and third quarters, or the second quarter was fantastic. Third quarter, we had, some rough moments, and then the fourth we took off again. So I don't know if that factored in at all, but I don't know. I mean, I think Doc is slowly understanding this. Are we possibly smarter than Doc Rivers when it comes to basic basketball scheming? Because if possible, if he is like midway through this year being like, hey, I just realized if I just put Andre Jackson on their best defender and annoy him, and worst case scenario, if he follows out, like we live with that, I'm going to I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be baffled, gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked.
The word. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think sometimes Doc is a bit too focused on offense. For example, there will be games, like he's said this numerous times, where we have had a game where we give up like 120, 130 points. So it's like bad defense is the kind of the obvious take from that game. And then in the post-game conference, he'll say something like, well, I think really it was our offense struggling that led to the bad defense. Okay, I've heard them say that multiple times, which I mean, I understand that. I don't think there's nothing to what he's saying. At the same time, if you're giving up 125 points, like your defense probably sucked. Like it's probably not just the fact that you put up some bad shots on offense, And so I think sometimes he's just too focused on offense. And that's the deal with Ajax. Ajax sometimes is awkward on offense. Just last night, Giannis had a pass to him underneath the basket. He could have just dunked it or laid it up, and he didn't even look at the basket, and he passed it out to, I don't know, Dame or whoever. And we got a good look from 3. But if you're at the basket, like, dunk it, make the layup. Okay.
Yeah.
I hate it when guys just pass up completely wide open, layup dunks. And so sometimes he'll do that, where he's like in a great position. We work the offense, or it's a semi-transition or whatever it is. And we like got this advantage, and then he just gives up the advantage. Mm-hmm. Other times I think he's getting better at this, but other times he will not shoot a wide open 3-pointer. Like, again, we've worked however we got here. We worked it around. We got a good, really great in rhythm look for Ajax. And then he hesitates, and then he passes it. Now we're kind of back to square one on that offensive set. And so I think that's what Doc sees and just gets so frustrated with. And it's just like, and if that's amidst us not scoring, then he's like, we got to get, we need some offense. We got to get Ajax out of there. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what happens. So, and that makes sense somewhat, obviously if you have a guy doing that all the time and it just blows up your offense continuously, that's not going to be a good thing. But at the same time, he will do some good things. Actually, in the same game yesterday, he had kind of I think it was maybe a dribble handoff with Giannis, and then he had an alley-oop to Giannis. He like went around, great pass, easy basket. And so he can make some good plays too, and his 3-point shooting is actually pretty good. I think people think of him like a bad shooter. I mean, even like the announcers, during a game, like they'll make comments and they'll just kind of refer. It just seems like there's no confidence in him. Yeah. Yet he's one of 3 Bucks that are shooting over 40%. Actually, he's one of 3 Bucks who are shooting over 33%. Oh, geez. That's how bad our team is shooting 3. But he's not the problem with, of the guys shooting threes. Andre Jackson Jr. is actually doing pretty good. And last year he was 38%, which is not bad. And I think on corner threes, I didn't write that down, but I think he's higher on corner threes, which ideally you would be. So I think if he has more time, he's going to get more comfortable. And I think he's going to be a fine, player on offense that's not going to muck stuff up. And he doesn't always muck stuff up. Like I just said, he does some good stuff. It's just sometimes he does some dumb stuff. And like, for me, like I could live with that for how good he is. The best defender outside of Giannis on the Bucks. I think it's clear. And more than that, he has this energy that no one has, and he make plays happen. And more than that, our team is just good when he's on the floor. Like, however, why is that? I guess we can have our different reasons, but he is a very positive player. I think he's the second best to Brook so far this year in terms of net rating. So I can understand why Doc took him out. I am a little annoyed and upset that he didn't put him back in, and I'm worried that he's going to like get moved to like, number 8 on the depth chart kind of a thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, don't leave our like best defender, the guy who's going to make a huge difference when we need to defend a Jalen Brunson or Jason Tatum or whoever it's going to be. Like, we're going to need him. We want him going full court. We want him so that the other team doesn't start their offense until there's like 14 seconds on the clock. There's like all these little things that have no statistics behind it that I think Ajax is doing. And I mean, he's getting some credit. He started a number of games now, but I'm a little worried that Doc's pulling him and not going back to him.
I think Ajax is Tommy from The Shawshank Redemption. Okay. When Tommy comes in and he kind of like brings some life to them, they're like, oh, here's this cocky guy who like blah, blah, blah. They're like, we immediately loved him. I think it might be the same type of thing what you're talking about. Like when Ajax comes in, he just brings this energy. He's hustling. He's a freak athlete. And so it just kind of gets them all kind of like energized again. And, to my lovely wife Ashley's point where she said that looks like they're having fun. I mean, that is something. It looks like they're more gelled for sure. Like the chemistry is definitely making a huge difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know what they're doing, but that does make a huge part of it. They look like they're actually just back to playing basketball versus trying to make things fit. It's just like, and sometimes things are just like that. You just overthink it instead of just being like, look, just go out there, play basketball, and do what we do, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. I think that is a big thing with like them having fun and them just going out and playing basketball as a team together. For those first few games, that wasn't there. It did not look like they were having fun. It was kind of a weird feeling out there. And recently it's flipped. And so that's good to see. And maybe one reason for that is AJ Green playing like an awesome NBA player. Like, wow, where'd this guy? I mean, we've all liked AJ Green, but I mean, he has been so solid on defense. I mean, I'm at the point where like, if AJ Green's the guy playing over Ajax, I guess I can't complain.
Yeah.
Because he has been so solid on defense. He's not quite the difference maker on defense, but he is just solid. He just makes it difficult for whoever he's defending. And they keep challenging him. Like Doc is like inviting it. Yeah, let's like keep challenging Green because we want you to do that. That's not a problem for us. So obviously he's a great shooter and he's shooting like 50% or whatever he is. That's awesome. But his defense is really what's impressed me.
Yeah, he's. I feel like we have like a secret weapon with AJ Green, and obviously we originally thought, hey, we have a secret weapon with Ajax. He's this young guy, great defender, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, don't forget AJ Green, who is an amazing shooter. Both of these guys give me the vibe of like NBA All-Star Weekend, where AJ Green's going to win the 3-point contest and Ajax is going to win the dunk contest, and people are going to be like, who are these people? And like in the meantime, the Bucks are going to be like, yeah, exactly. Like we knew exactly who they are. It's going to be like Obi Toppin, our favorite Pacer to talk about. It was like his brother was in the dunk contest, and they're like, whatever Toppin, brother of Obi Toppin. And I go, who's Obi Toppin? Like, am I supposed to know who that is? And then Obi Toppin comes out all dressed up, and his brother tries to jump over him, which I don't think he did. And the next thing I know, I'm like, oh yeah, he's on the Pacers, and now he's playing like amazing. And it's just like, maybe that's the coming out party for these guys.
Yeah. I like your, maybe that's a good guess here that AJ Green, maybe he will be in the 3-point contest. I mean, if he keeps playing like this and he keeps getting playing time, if he's going to be playing 30 minutes, there's a decent chance of that.
Yeah. Right.
That would be fun. That would be cool. I mean, do they get kind of lesser known, like how good does he have to be? How good do the Bucks have to be for AJ Green to get that invite?
So that's a great question, but I think you're going to be kind of shocked at what the answer is. I don't think you have to know anything, because if you remember, one of the guys that won the dunk contest 2 years in a row, it wasn't even in the NBA. He was in the G League.
Yes, that's true.
So if you could have some G League guy come in and win the contest, like as long as you have a pulse, you can get into these things. Like AJ Green probably just has to like check a box and mail it in, and they'll probably invite him. So yeah, I don't think it has to do with record or anything like that. If he just continues to kind of ball out, like he'll have an opportunity to go if he wants.
Yeah, well, I hope he does it. That'd be awesome.
That would be cool.
Speaking of 3-point shooting, there's a ton of 3-point shooting in the NBA, and it just gets more and more and more. And I'm one of these guys that I want that rule to change because it's getting a little out of hand. And one stat that I saw here that kind of points to that is last year the Bucks took 39.6% of their shots from 3, and that was 4th in the league. Okay, so far this year, they're shooting 39.1%, and that's 15th in the league. And so it just the amount of 3-point shooting from these teams is just going up and up and up, and we're kind of falling behind. And it's maybe I was a little surprised at that because it seemed to me like we were playing kind of a more old school basketball. Like we weren't playing the modern NBA. And then I look at this and I'm like, oh, we took a ton of threes last year. And like, oh, we're taking almost the same amount this year. and we're in middle of the league. We're not even bottom of the league. Like I thought I'd look up the stat and we were going to be like 25th to 30th in like a number of 3-pointers taken. But it's not that bad. But at the same time, it does seem a little bit like the league is passing us by. And honestly, I don't even want us to shoot a ton of threes. So I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But maybe I'll pause there and just let you take that. Do you think we should be shooting more threes, or do you think there's, is that a trend that's not going to continue, that there's going to be kind of setbacks there?
Well, I think that, all these trends are going to be based on like the younger players. And I think you talked about it with Andre Jackson when it was like he had a wide open shot, but he dishes out shooting a three.
Yeah.
That's just their mentality of these younger players. And I think, I don't think we necessarily have to shoot more threes. I think the bigger picture is like we talk about the long mid range. And yeah, like you said, if your percentage is going to go up dramatically by having that extra 5-foot difference, then stop shooting as many threes and just shoot the most high percentage shots you can. But if it's something like a long mid range is 42%, but we're shooting 41% from three, then yeah, just shoot threes. Like it's at that point, it's not a significant advantage. And if all these other NBA players, it's all about shooting threes all the time, so you're going to have to just kind of step up in some way. And I think we're starting to get with that, with like Prince and Wright being able to shoot three from time to time. They're not the most reliable guys you want shooting that, but that's just the way the NBA is right now. And I think that's why Giannis and like Jokic are being able to do so well, because nobody is down on the rim challenging them, and they can just kind of do whatever they want. Whereas, the 90s, good luck doing anything down low because all those guys were huge and mean and, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need to shoot more by any stretch, but I think that's just the NBA that we live in. And, you just have to be somewhere middle of the road so that you can do what you do, while trying to not just fall behind if teams are going to just chuck threes all day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's nice to see Giannis. I believe I saw the stat that he's number 1 in attempts at the rim, which is what we want.
I saw that.
And
too,
he's, he's like a 72%, like really good percentage as well. Okay, well, let me pick on Bobby a little bit more. Okay, so under Bud, obviously our team shot more threes under Bud. That's a Coach Bud philosophy. Threes and shots. He's the big analytic guy. So it kind of makes sense that our team and generally, and so Bobby is one example, might shoot less threes than he did 2, 3, 4 years ago. Okay, that's true. But this year, he is down to, he's taking the least amount of threes that he's taken since his rookie year. So it's not just like, compared to 3 years ago or something. It's even when he came into the league, and the league was not like, let's shoot a bunch of threes. So he's not shooting many threes. He's also shooting terribly, like 26% or something like that, 28%. But going back to that mid-range conversation, like he's shooting more mid-ranges at not a great percentage. He's a career 40% 3-point shooter. He's actually a really good shooter, typically, not so far this year, but typically he is. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why are you taking all those dumb long twos, a lot of them like turnaround shots, so that's why you're only shooting 41% when you're a pretty good 3-point shooter? Just like get back there and take the threes. It's just so the Bobby shot profile, I think, has just gotten worse, from something that people already complained about last year. So I think under Bud, it was just more threes and less of those dumb twos, and that's switched. And I think that's why there's so much frustration with Bobby the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think under Bud, he spent a lot of time around the rim, and then occasionally it'd be out to three. So when he was taking those shots, being a career 40% makes sense because he would wait for the wide open shot. The mid-range ones seem more forced, like, again, to what I was saying before, acting like he's the number 1 scoring option. And yeah, there could be plays where he is, but I just find it hard to believe when you have Dame and Giannis on there, Bobby's going to be number 1 very often at all. So sometimes it just seems like he's just trying to get his, which I hope is not the case, because I think he is a great team player. But it just looks like that sometimes. It just feels off to me.
Yeah, I mean, something I want to see more of is Giannis driving and kicking. You see it occasionally. I feel like you should see it more. He should get, and he gets like 6 assists per game kind of throughout his career, pretty much. And, I guess this is probably not going to happen, but it seems like that should be more like 8, 8 or 9 assists a game. Like,
yeah.
And I don't know if the space, part of it, sometimes the space isn't there with some of these lineups, and, maybe there's multiple reasons, but it does seem like a lot of times he's just putting his head down and going into 3 guys and not really looking around as much as he could. And it's not an easy thing to do, and if you don't have that, if you don't have that ability, just kind of automatically, like Jokic and LeBron James, some of these guys just have that skill. And so you can't just automatically have it, but it does seem like it's something he could work on. And I guess in general, I don't like him just plowing through 3 guys especially in a game when it's not working, when the defense does have it kind of figured out pretty well, and he just doesn't get it going. At that point, maybe turn it more into a passer and a distributor, as opposed to just continually trying to get to the rim, and instead you're having like 8 turnovers with a bunch of offensive fouls. So pretty nitpicky because Giannis is incredible. But I think that is an area. And honestly, I guess maybe what I'm leading to is we need Giannis and 4 wing lineups. Like, get Bobby out of there sometimes and just have Giannis and 4 athletic wings who all can shoot, and just, play small ball with Giannis at the 5. And against some of these lineups that we're facing, it like makes perfect sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Don't put Giannis up against Embiid. Like, okay, I get it. But a lot of these teams don't have like a big center that is going to body Giannis and like make his life hell for a while. It's just, it's just surprising how little we're seeing those lineups.
Yeah, they had a couple lineups that were close, but you're right that they had Bobby in there instead of Giannis. And I didn't understand that. I think I don't understand the game plan behind it because, Bobby isn't the best 3-point shooter right now. He's also not big enough to be a big paint guy. So it's like once again, Doc is almost there, but just not quite willing to go the whole way, which I think is, something he's got to work on. Hopefully we can see a fix there. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot to add. I think you kind of nailed it. Yeah, if Giannis can get out there and distribute more, I don't know if it's a pride thing where he feels like he has to do something to put up points or state a message or something, or maybe the teammates aren't in the right position for him to kick it out. But yeah, there are definitely some serious situations where it's like, all right, if you have 3 guys on you, you have to realize somebody's sitting there wide open, and you need to be able to be more alert. I agree. He should be more the 8 to 10 assist range, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we might kind of fall back into this, but there's something I looked at I wanted to run by you. Taurean Prince. I just haven't bought into him as a player this season. And I can't say that he's been bad per se. I don't watch him play and see him make like a ton of mistakes necessarily. Although I think on defense, he is overrated, or it's just not discussed that he's not very good, I think, on defense, especially on perimeter defense. I think he gets blown by a decent amount and is kind of out of position sometimes. But I looked into it a little bit, and because he's starting every game at the 3 in place of Chris Middleton. He's getting 29.9 minutes per game. And it's just kind of like, and he's hitting all these threes, right? He's shooting, I think, 53% from 3, which is great. So it's kind of like he's the new Malik Beasley, where he starts, he hits a ton of threes, and otherwise, like, I'm not sure what he's doing. And it's not, but also I can't clearly say, oh, you suck. Like, this is, you're just so bad on defense, or you're doing this or that. And that's kind of like what Malik Beasley was last year, where I couldn't point to anything necessarily, but I was just like, why are you playing 30 plus minutes a game? It's just, you should be further down on the depth chart. I just don't get it. So I have the same feelings here with Taurean Prince. Look at the stats, and he has the worst second worst net rating to Bobby. Worst, his Taurean Prince's net rating is negative 11.2 on the season. So that's with him shooting 53% from three. Like, what happens when he's down to his career average, which is good, 40%? Is that even going to be worse? So that's kind of curious, like that it's that bad. But what's interesting is that I looked at the other thing is when we signed him, I thought, awesome. This is the kind of guy that we need, someone who can play the 4 and be more athletic and long and hit threes. Okay, I'm picturing in my mind him as like a backup 4. And now he's starting in place of Chris Middleton at the 3. And so that's not actually what I was thinking of when we signed him. And then I was looking at, and I'm just thinking the whole time, like, I feel like he makes some more sense at the 4. Okay. I look back last year on the Lakers. First of all, he had the worst net rating on the team at negative 8.8. Okay. And that was because when he was on the floor, the defense was the worst when he was on the floor. So it was really about defense being bad. His plus minus when he was on the court was negative 2.2. But when you just look at when he played the 4, he was plus 1.4. So when he played the 4, the team was actually positive. When he played the 3, it was negative. Okay. So then I looked at on the Timberwolves the year before that. He was a plus 3.6 at the 4 and a negative 2.3 at the 3. And he had over 1,000 possessions at each position that year. So significant difference. Way better when he's playing. The team played much better when he was at the 4 compared to when he was at the 3. I looked at the year before that. He was on the Timberwolves. Same thing. So it's 3 years of full years with the team, plus now 15 games with the Bucks, that it seems like he's not good. The team is not good when he's playing the 3. We have like a lot of data that I'm looking at in addition to just like the eye test. And so now I'm just waiting for Doc to realize this and like, don't play Prince so much. And there are games where Prince starts and he plays, and then you don't see him as much in the second half. That happens like I guess not enough because he's getting 30 minutes a game, but I feel like Doc kind of sees it sometimes, but just in general, as like a philosophy of like where Prince is, who is he on this team? I would love if he was just a backup 4, which then also could lead to some of those Giannis and 4 wings. And maybe it's Giannis, Prince, and then 3 guards, basically. And because Prince is 6'8", he's actually a pretty good rebounder. Hopefully he's physical enough to guard whoever is the 4 at that point. And, maybe that's a pretty good lineup that we've seen, barely any of. So, yeah. So that was my Prince kind of deep dive. What do you think about it?
I'm surprised and not surprised at the same time. I totally thought Prince was a 4, a backup 4. And when he was at Baylor, I thought he played the 4. So
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So time. I don't really understand why you would force him on the 3 so much. Definitely seems out of position. Maybe Doc is just trying to, I don't know, maybe for giving Doc the benefit of the doubt, maybe because Chris is 6'8" and Prince is 6'8", he's somehow scheming to see like how they could play off each other in similar type situations, I guess. I don't know. That may be, again, too deep for Doc. But I don't know. Yeah, he seems definitely out of place. If you're going to have a net rating like that, I think sometimes Doc maybe doesn't have an analytics guy on his team. Or else someone tries to say this stuff to him and he's like, I don't want that mumbo jumbo, or like I could see him saying something like that. And just focus on like the look and feel of things type of approach. So maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got somebody that's getting a better voice to try some of these different positions, get guys on the bench more.
Yeah, I think maybe part of the thing with Prince for me is when I'm watching him play, like we were talking about, like these guys look like they're having fun. They look like they're, a part of something together, a team. And I don't really get that from Prince a lot. I just get this vibe that he's kind of his own, a little Jay Crowder-esque, which sucks because we're replacing Jay Crowder with him, which is another reason I'm thinking a 4. I'm thinking Jay Crowder was like a 4.
Yep.
Although I think if I went back to last year, Crowder probably started for Middleton a number of games. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Prince, it's just he kind of, I'm not sure if he's bought it. I'm not sure if the team is bought in with him and he's bought in with the team. And like, are they having fun together? Do they enjoy playing with each other? Is there something about his personality that maybe is part of the issue here? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely seems kind of like a bench guy. Not Mr. Personality, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that's, but I think you definitely called it. He just doesn't seem like he fits in. And you look at like another of the free agents, Wright and even Trent, have all of a sudden, like they seem to have kind of found a vibe a little bit. I mean, to the point that, when Doc was yelling at Trent, all of a sudden he seems to be the guy that we thought he was going to be, and Wright like seems to understand his place. He's almost like a Pat Bev-esque attitude, I think, when I see him out there. Skill set still lacking from, what I want from that position. But yeah, I mean, maybe there is some with Prince. Maybe that's his personality, a little Tim Duncan-ish, to just be like, I'm just here to work and whatever. But I don't know. We'll have to watch it because I sense it too. It just doesn't seem like the vibe is there.
Yeah. Well, here's a lineup that I would love to see that I think maybe it'll happen now that we've seen these guys, kind of fall into position. Like AJ Green kind of has definitely earned a starting spot at this point. And so this starting lineup, which has played 0 possessions this season: Lopez, Giannis, Ajax, AJ Green, and Dame. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't it sound like a nice lineup?
Great. Yeah, it does sound like a very good lineup.
They have not played 1 second together this season. So, over the next few games, I don't know if we'll pod next, at least 2 weeks from now at the latest, hopefully, we'll be back on here. And I'm hoping that they at least give that a run.
Well, I think we have to, the Pacers game is going to be a big test. We know that they're fast and very athletic. And so Doc's going to have to come up with creative lineups because, like we've talked about before, that's not a Brook game. Brook might have some luck kind of clogging up the lane if that's kind of what's going on. But you're going to have to come up with more athletic lineups because otherwise Brook's just going to kind of get burned by these guys that are just faster. And so I think that's going to be the big test coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the Giannis and 4 wings. Are we going to see that, or is it always going to be Giannis and Portis? When Lopez is out. Prime opportunity with Bobby playing poorly and playing the Pacers, where hopefully thinking less Lopez, so we need to mix some stuff up. So yeah, those are the 2 things, the 2 different lineups that I guess I want to see. The one I mentioned, and then Giannis and 4 wings. So no Portis, no Lopez.
Yep. I love
That's the challenge, Doc. Do it. So the Giannis and 4 wings, by the way, they have done it 3.5% of the season. So they've barely done it. 47 possessions total, and they're plus 29.8 on those possessions. The last fun stat of the pod: the Bucks this season have played 109 possessions with Bobby and Prince off the floor. That's it. It's actually just in itself is kind of surprising. So only 8% of the time have we seen the Bucks without Bobby or Prince. That's it. Of that, the Bucks had a plus 27.8 rating.
Well,
so less Bobby, less Prince, and maybe we'll be even better.
That's true. I think Doc is definitely another coach that is the play it out. Like Bobby just has to play more to shake the rust, which is I hope that's not the case, because it's it's just not working. Like, treat him like Trent. Like, you're just not going to play a lot this week until you can figure it out again.
That's right. He handled Trent perfectly. It's like,
Yeah.
you're not, if you're going to suck, you're not going to play, and we're going to keep giving you opportunities, but it might just be 5-10 minutes, if you're not hitting a shot. So,
Yeah. Figure it out during, practice. And if you put in a game and you're hot, I'll keep you out there. And if you're not, then, this just wasn't the game for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
all right. Good talk. Right. I don't think we have a flop corner this time. Maybe next time we'll find something.
We'll look for
anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just really excited about the Pacers game. I think it's a big test to see kind of how we can keep up, because the East is still a lot of those teams. And, we're getting through a lot of difficult matchups early. So let's get it like a real young athletic team and see really how we can gel together. Hopefully we can get Chris back and make some big wins coming up. So,
yeah, let's go. Subscribe and rate us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Email us at doubledribblebucks@gmail.com. Didn't have that mailbag today. Let's get some questions. And follow us on Twitter at PodDDB. Happy Thanksgiving, and until next time, go Bucks.